Welcome back to our daily Bible study. I'm Matthew Gage, pastor at Faith Baptist Church in Decatur, Texas, and we will be in Genesis chapter number 11 this morning. Genesis chapter number 11. This chapter bridges us from the flood to Abraham, setting up the world that Abraham is born into. Now, last time we looked at chapter number 10 and the table of nations, the origins of all these nations and people groups. And here we kind of have another little detail. We're going to talk about the Tower of Babel, and I think takes place during those days, which further explains the split and the division and the people spreading out as recorded there in chapter number 10. So I don't know that this happened after the events of chapter number 10. I think it's during the days of chapter number 10 that this happens. So let's jump in. Chapter number 11, book of Genesis, verse number 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Can you imagine that today? You travel around the world and so many different languages. I forget now how many hundreds. I think there's something around 700 or something different languages, and just hundreds and hundreds of them, and even these particular little dialects and accents and things you can get into. But in that day, so close to the origin of the world, there was just one language everybody spoke. Verse number 2. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. That land of Shinar, that's over kind of near modern day or Babylon. It's in modern day Iraq. Verse 3. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they made brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Now, what are they doing here? Well, they're acting out a lot of pride and a lot of rebellion against God. What did God tell them to do? He told them to go out to replenish the earth. And here they're saying, we want to stay here. We don't want to spread out. We want to build us a great name. And in doing so, they build this city, this civilization. And specifically here we have the building of a great tower. Now, what is this tower? We don't have a lot of details. I hear some people make some reference to something you'll see a little bit later in history, and that is the type of building they would build in that part of the country, or part of the world, the ziggurat, which is this levels of terraces and things. I think that might be a good fit for what this Tower of Babel was supposed to be, is they were building up these levels and getting higher. Now, the reference is made that they want to reach unto heaven. What does that mean? What are they trying to accomplish? Are they actually trying to build something, a stairway to heaven, quite literally? Are they building something to study the stars? Are they building something to get closer to the God in the sky? I think probably something along the lines of some of those later things. I think this has something to do with astrology. I don't think that they were really trying to build something up, but it's their pride and their arrogance in doing this. Kind of have, I don't know why, but I kind of have flashbacks, flash forwards, I guess, to the arrogance of the people who built the Titanic. This ship will never sink. This is the greatest ship to ever sail the seas. Here's these people saying, we're going to build this tower. It's going to be so tall, it's going to reach all the way up into the sky. Reach all the way up to heaven to be with God. Same kind of arrogance, and God's going to strike them down. So, verse number 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. So kind of harkens back to some of the pre-flood things where they're talking about every imagination being wicked and evil. Well, here, God's saying, if I let this go, we're going to get back to some of that same problem. This isn't what needs to happen for the good of mankind. So, let's see, verse number 7. I lost my place. Go to, let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Notice there, once again, it says, let us, plural, God's talking to himself, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, having conversation. And the word God there is Elohim. It's plural, so that's staying true to that. Let us go down. So they're going to go down and confound their speech. Verse 8. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. So as they begin to build the city, now one person is speaking one language, somebody speaking another. Somebody says "Como estás?" Somebody says "Sprechen Sie Deutsch?" and somebody says "Parlez-vous français?" And all these different languages. And the one guy says, "Hey, howdy, boys, how you doing?" All these different languages now come out. It's spread on the families. They can't communicate anymore, and so they spread out and go back to doing what they're supposed to do. Which, by the way, God has a way of making his will be accomplished even when we don't want to, even when we fight against it. God can step in and make matters in such a way that his will is accomplished, which is what happened here. Verse 9. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. And the word Babel there means confusion. So, and you see the echo of that word, of course, when you get later to Babylon. This is a precursor in that area, that civilization. If you were to trace the Babylon of Nebuchadnezzar back through centuries, you would trace it back down to probably this attempted civilization, the people that were trying to do this. So that's the story there. The origin of different languages, the spreading out of people, the divisions that are reinforced between these different families and tribes and clans as they're settling throughout the world. So verse number 10 begins a new section here, and it's another genealogical section. So bear with me again as we try to pronounce these awful hard to pronounce names. Verse number 10. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 530 years and begat Selah. And Arphaxad lived after he begot Selah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. Selah lived 30 years and begot Eber. And Selah lived after he begot Eber 403 years and begot sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years and begot Peleg, which we mentioned last time. Let's see, verse number 17. And Eber lived after he begot Peleg 430 years and begot sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years and begot Reu. Verse 19, Peleg lived after he begot Reu 209 years and begot sons and daughters. And Reu lived 230 years and begot Sereg. And Reu lived after he begot Sereg 207 years and begot sons and daughters. Now you already notice here, as we're getting out a few centuries past the flood, that we're beginning to see that shortening of these lifespans. They went from being 900, and now we're talking just a few hundred as it's shortening down closer to what we have today. Let's see here. We are, I believe, in verse number 24. And Nahor lived 29 years and begat Terah. And Nahor lived after he begot Terah 119 years and begot sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Verse number 27. Now we're going to focus in on Terah. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. Verse 29. And Abram and Nahor took them wives, and the name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarah was barren; she had no child. So we're setting up here the family history, of course, of Abram, who will become known as Abraham. So we see his family tree. We already saw Lot. He's going to come back in. So we're setting up his family background here. And of course, the fact is introduced that in this day and age, when all these people are having all these sons and daughters, having these families, that Sarah is childless. Verse 31. And Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died at Haran. So we have Terah, the father of Abraham, leaving with his family, Ur the Chaldees, over closer to modern Iraq, Babylon, that kind of area. They make it to Haran. I think that was about halfway, if I remember correctly. I may be wrong. Look at the map when you get time. They make it there, and that's as far as him. In fact, the name Terah, if I remember correctly, his name actually means delay, if I remember correctly. And so he gets there. He never makes it as far as he wanted to go into the land of Canaan. And we're going to see now when we get down to chapter number 12 that desire, that call is going to be given expressly to Abraham. And he's going to be called by God to leave his homeland to come to the promised land, as we call it, the land of Canaan, and that God's going to make a mighty nation out of him. And thus we have the origins of the Jewish people. So here we go. That's where we get into that. And looking forward as we begin to study that. Really, when you deal with the book of Genesis, these first 11 chapters are, the background information. Wish we knew so much more, but it's just this real quick little recap to get us to this point, to the story of the Jewish people. Why are the Jewish people important? Well, they're God's chosen people, yes, but who's going to come through their line? Well, it's going to be Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God. So now we begin to focus in on Abraham and his family, and we'll deal with them through the rest of the book of Genesis. So anyway, we'll call that good for today. I appreciate you watching, and I hope it's been a help and a blessing to you.